Marvelous Halloween, fiends and loathed ones! How are you today? Do you all remember your very first rated M game? Maybe you were playing it a few years before you were supposed to, and something about it just felt really good, right? Like you were getting away with something you weren't supposed to be doing. Well, my first rated M game was Conker's Bad Fur Day, which doesn't really have anything to do with what we're going to be talking about today. But my second rated M game was BloodRayne. BloodRayne was developed by Terminal Reality in 2002 for the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and original Xbox, and the publisher, Majesco, knew they had something special on their hands with this red-headed bloodsucker. Rain was quickly being pushed as a super awesome femme fatale sex symbol of gaming. I remember back then people were thinking she could be the next Lara Croft, as she consistently made it close to the top of, if not at the top of, several lists of greatest heroines, greatest protagonists, and sexiest characters in video games. She was even the first ever video game character to appear in Playboy magazine. She went on to appear in comic books, other video games, and much like Lara Croft before her, a series of pretty bad movies. The point is, the game's titular heroine seemed like she was leaving quite the set of bite marks on gaming culture. I said tick. The game was originally conceived as a spiritual successor to one of Terminal Reality's earlier titles, Nocturne. And before anyone says anything, yes, they did own the copyright to that name. And yes, Atlas USA did have to pay them when they localized Shin Megami Tensei 3. So, what made this busty, gothic, red-headed, sultry, Nazi-killing, half-vampire babe so appealing? You know what? I feel like I just answered my own question, so let's just move on to the game. BloodRayne opens up with a fairly lengthy cinematic where these two dudes in robes are watching Rain and are all like, yes, she is quite powerful. Look at how she totally ripped that dude's head off. We shall offer her a position with our secret underground society of people who do cool, spooky stuff. And then we'll go get some McDonald's. These people are the BPR... No, wait, that's a different thing. These people are the Brimstone Society, and they basically ensure that humanity is protected from supernatural threats. This isn't really a new or original idea, but it works here. Surprisingly, there doesn't seem to be a scene about them actually recruiting Rain or anything. Once you jump in, we're just at the start of her first mission. Rain and fellow half-vampire Mints are on their way to Moultron, Louisiana, because a virus outbreak has been turning the residents into violent, gun-toting psychopaths. Rain says that, hey, wait a minute, I know that voice. We've got Laura Bailey, everybody, Rise Kujikawa herself.
I'm tired of diets, enough with going to the gym. Good thing there's something even I can handle.
Most of our time in Louisiana is spent going from place to place to take out the biomasses, which are just these insect nests spewing out bugs that are responsible for mutating the citizens. She also has to rescue citizens and send them to the safe zone at the mausoleum, including the town deputy, who is very, very Cajun.
Say, Feeny. Well, I'm off now. Later, mon chéri.
Yeah, whatever, Gambit. The controls in Blood Rise are simple enough. The game uses tank control, so you can turn or walk forward and backward with the left stick, while the right stick lets you look up or down. To operate the camera, you don't. For combat, Rain can pick up guns that are lying around that are fired with the R1 button, and to aim, you don't. She sort of auto-aims at enemies, which is pretty helpful for finding where targets are, because this game is really, really dark. I actually had to turn up the brightness when making this video. But your main weapon of choice will be Rain's stylish arm blades. You can perform a short combo with these that can take care of most problems, and it's done by mashing the L1 button, which I have to say on a PlayStation controller is not the best button for mashing while also trying to move around. But the main move you will find yourself using is Rain's ability to feed on most enemies. As a vampire, when Rain is close to an enemy, she can latch onto them and drain their blood. Not only will this kill the vast majority of enemies in this game, but will restore your health, as Rain doesn't auto-heal. And if that wasn't cheap enough, after defeating the first nest, Mince will give you a harpoon, allowing you to scorpion faraway enemies towards you.
Get over here!
Where Rain will pin them down, straddle them, and suck them dry. I can think of worse ways to die. After destroying all the nests, Rain heads back to the mausoleum, where Mince is all like,
"Oh boy, I sure do love being a super sexy half-vampire with my boobs and my butt. I sure hope one of those weak, easily killed insect things doesn't sneak up on me, a highly trained agent, and oh no! This is the opposite of what I wanted!"
Oh yeah, and then they kill everybody else too, making most of what we did completely pointless. Filled with fury and what is probably a very unhealthy amount of mutated human blood, Rain tracks down the Insect Queen.
Big Mama.
And players will learn the strategy for most boss fights in this game. Go into a blood rage, mash the melee button, and hope that they die before you do. After winning, Rain finds a weird glowing rib inside the Queen's stomach, which is immediately stolen by this guy, Jurgen Wolf, who leaves Rain to die. 5 years later, Rain Kujikawa is thankfully not dead and receives a new assignment from the Brimstone Society. We're going to Argentina to just kill a bunch of Nazis.
Then a vampire came and devastation reigned. A man saw this monster sucking blood from people's veins.
This is where the game really starts to pick up. Rain has a shopping list of targets, and we just need to hunt them down and wipe them out. Each time you kill one of the head officers, you get a shot of their name and what their role was. And as someone who gets a lot of satisfaction from crossing tasks off a to-do list, I really enjoyed this extra touch. Unfortunately, we spend so much time in this building, and it's just not a very exciting or interesting area. It's just a slew of brown hallways with nothing to see except for, you guessed it, even more Nazis. Oh, and the Ark of the Covenant. Ah! Why did I do that? Most of the folks on Rain's list are just slightly stronger normal enemies, but every few levels we get greeted with some real boss fights that provide a nice bit of story. Like this KKK priest guy who tells us about their goal to revive the King of Atlantis, Beliar, by collecting his parts. You know, like that rib we found back in Louisiana. Because the Atlanteans were a pure-blooded race and blah 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 blah. They're Nazis, just kill them. You also fight the silent Nazi ninja, Commando, spelled with a K, of course, in what is a pretty great fight, as he uses smoke bombs to mess with your senses, and you have to hunt him down in this large 3-story arena. There's also the busty, bouncy, booby butcheress, Dr. Bathory Mengele, who has been experimenting on her own men with these demon slug monsters called Damites, and this is also a pretty good boss fight. And finally, as we explore deeper and deeper into the deep depths of the deepness, Rain finds herself in what I will affectionately refer to as Satan's butthole. You know what I really love? When games that don't have great platforming suddenly require it to scale incredibly vertical levels filled with respawning enemies. Except no, I don't love that at all. Because it's terrible. And so is this whole part of the game. Also, everything really looks like an anus. But we finally get what the Nazis were looking for, a crystal skull. That is garbage because the real treasure is the Eye of Beliar, which Rain jams into her own skull, giving her the ability to become a human sniper rifle scope. Guess what we're gonna need to do later? And so, in an attempt to cover up their failures, the Nazis decide to blow up Satan's butthole, so Rain must escape quickly with one final boss fight standing in her way, the powerful Mauler, who is so strong he will literally destroy the level in order to get at you. Just don't get hit by this guy and you'll be fine. After hijacking a submarine, Rain heads to Germany, where the rest of the game takes place, and she's given a new to-do list of Nazis to kill. I think the military compound of Argentina made more sense for what we're fighting, but I do visually prefer the Gothic historic castles of Germany. I mean, it's still a big bland area that's way too easy to get lost in, but you know, it looks nicer. Again, the boss fights are what really stood out to me the most in this new area. Rayne even gets to hijack a robot and take down what are essentially Nazi ATST walkers. I have to say it's a good thing this isn't the end of the game, or I'd have to add BloodRayne to the list of games I've covered on this channel that end with fighting giant robots. And hey, look! Mint survived the mosquito bite she got back in Louisiana, and she's working for the Nazis. So, rather than having an actual conversation, we just knock her off a cliff, where she's definitely for sure dead this time. Then there's also Hedrox, an immortal feral hive mind vampire that makes copies of himself as you slash off his body parts. This was a really awesome fight because the intro cutscene shows you how to beat him as the two are talking. Rather than attacking him, you've got to destroy the stage itself, so all his copies fall into the water. The dialogue between Rayne and Hedrox is pretty good, and Laura Bailey does a mostly nice job with the character. I get that Rayne is supposed to sound sultry, sexy, and sassy, but a lot of the time she just sounds bored.
Tell me you love me, honey.
Mince! You're alive! Again! It turns out that Mince has been a double agent for the Brimstone Society this entire time, and gives Rayne the tags of a lot of people on her hit list, leaving only one, Wolf himself. Luckily, Wolf shows his face and rips Mince's heart out. Good one, Mince, but you can't fool me 3 times. I know you're gonna be... Oh. Yeah, she's dead this time. So, as we enter the final boss fight of the game, Hedrox is the one who summons Beliar, but ends up getting completely annihilated because Beliar is not the King of Atlantis, as that one random dude once told us, but is instead an incredibly powerful demon, and good lord, he is a terrible looking final boss. So the final boss fight is actually a 2-part deal, as Rayne has to fight Wolf and Beliar at the exact same time. The catch of this fight is that Beliar is constantly growing, and if he gets too big, it's an instant game over. The only way to actually hurt Beliar, though, is to shoot him in the heart, which I've gotta say is easier said than done, because Beliar just looks like a coral reef with legs, and half the time I couldn't make heads or tails of where I was actually supposed to be shooting him. Doubly so, because as I mentioned earlier, this game is really freaking dark. But upon killing Beliar, he's done for good, and Rayne celebrates the same way any of us would, by fondling her own boobs and giving him the middle finger. However, we still need to kill Wolf, which is a lot easier to do when you don't have the threat of an exponentially growing demon putting a time limit on your fight. Once he's dead, we get another cutscene where Rayne gives the finger to the freshly decapitated Nazi. Then there's one more cutscene where she gives double middle fingers to both of them because... why not? Rayne kicks Beliar's petrified heart into the abyss, and the game ends by setting up a sequel. The Brimstone Society has found Rayne's father, and he must be stopped. And that's BloodRayne. I have very mixed feelings about this game. I mean, Rayne herself is a pretty great character, and I certainly understand why she was being set up as this pop culture phenomenon. The idea of fighting off Nazis and demons is an appealing one. I mean, heck, of course I love it. I'm a Megaten fan. But the game itself is just not that great. With incredibly limited melee combos, insanely subpar gun mechanics, and an instant kill move that you'll spend most of the game just spamming, the gameplay isn't all that exciting. Many of the levels are way too long and way too easy to get lost in because nearly everything looks the same. The story, while not terrible, feels very bare bones, and I'd have liked a bit more characterization from everyone. I'd say the best part of this game are the boss battles, but even a lot of them feel very repetitive. I feel like BloodRayne is a game that has a lot of potential, and not just from its appealing leading lady. I didn't hate playing through it again for this video, but it just doesn't really feel like a game I can recommend. Of course, the story doesn't end here. BloodRayne went on to get a sequel and even a side-scrolling spin-off title from Way Forward back in 2011. There were a handful of cancelled BloodRayne games for the PSP and even the Nintendo 3DS. Do you think any of these titles fare better than the first one? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to visit any of these other games down the road. Or just, play them for yourself. Maybe I'm just biased, but I have really fond memories of playing BloodRayne. 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 Just end the video here.